Hello, everyone, and a very good afternoon. We are elated to commence another captivating session on connecting the dots. First and foremost, we extend our gratitude to our esteemed speakers for their participation in this panel discussion. Srinath Guru Rajarao, ex Senior VP HR at Simple Energy, Shikha Verma, founder and mindfulness coach at Vibrant Vibes Consulting and Happiness. Sudipto Mandal, CHRO and Head HR at L&T Metro Rail Limited. A warm welcome to all. In today's evolving work culture, moonlighting has sparked intense debates. Some see it as an opportunity for skill enhancement, financial growth, and entrepreneurial ventures, while others perceive it as a threat to productivity, company loyalty, and confidentiality. Join us as we discuss whether moonlighting is a risk to organization or a catalyst for innovation in the modern workforce. HRA welcomes you all to the session on this insightful topic, moonlighting, a threat or opportunity. To know more about HRA and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. I now take the privilege of introducing our moderator for today, Harini Srinivasan, partner at Semicostal Institute of India. Harini is a curious soul who loves shaking things up. Coming from a family of innovators, engineers, and teachers, she is a unique blend of all. She is a business transformation consultant, coach, and speaker, driving agile leadership and innovation. She helps organizations embrace creativity, collaboration, and smart decisions. A nature lover and mentor, she inspires change through writing, speaking, and fresh ideas, always exploring the unconventional. To know more about her, you can follow her on LinkedIn. The link has been shared in the chat window. Without wasting much time, I will hand over the platform to Harini. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Faisal, and warm welcome to everyone on the call. Very good afternoon to all of you. So, what I see here on the panel is more than 100 years of experience and wisdom, all of us put together. And I want to quickly introduce each of the panelists here because there's a lot of wisdom that comes with rich experience. So we have somebody from an organization that I have worked with in the past, Larsen and Toubro, from the Larsen and Toubro group, and we have Sudipto Mandal here, and he's CHRO and head HR at the L&T Metro Rail in Hyderabad. Strategic leader with more than 26 years of experience across industries, you name it, and it is on his list: IT, FMCG, BFSI, and manufacturing. A proud alumnus of TIS, a lot of respect of mine goes to TIS, and he has led HR at Asian Paints, Oracle, CRISIL, and more. His expertise is in HR strategy, cultural transformation, and leadership development. And I think definitely talking of cultural transformation, I'm sure there'll be a lot that we will hear from Sudipto on this topic. And last but not the least, he is a very much sought after speaker at various B schools and has delivered a lot of keynotes at B schools. Next, we have Srinath Guru Rajarao. He's Executive Senior Vice President HR at Simple Energy, again with over 25 years of experience, driven transformative initiatives. So I love the word transformation appearing in all the profiles here. And definitely that's going to help us get a bunch of takeaways from this conversation. He has led these initiatives as Simple Energy, Nextval Inc., Capgemini, and Tech Mahindra. He holds 7 HR tech patents. How many of us actually do that? And he was recognized by Mercer and Forbes and GMI's top 100 great people managers repeatedly. Very passionate about innovation and people development, and he builds future ready workplaces with a smile. That's someone that I would definitely want to stay in touch with later as well, because that's something that's my passion as well. Shikha is an old friend. I've known Shikha for a longer time. She's a founder and mindfulness coach at Vibrant Vibes Consulting. Shikha spreads happiness. I can vouch for that. A dynamic L&D leader, 22 plus years of experience. She's worked with top organizations, MNCs in particular, Hero, Wipro, Honda, Yamaha, and Panasonic. She has trained over 20,000 employees in human skills, culture, happiness, and leadership development. As an entrepreneur, she has impacted 3,000 plus individuals, and that too, I'm sure, in a very short time, including professionals. And her focus has been on women entrepreneurs. So, lots of respect to you for that purpose, Shikha. She has received multiple awards, including Social Impact Leader, Empower Icon Award, and HR Excellence Award. So, there's no dearth of wisdom on this panel. So I'm going to start this conversation right away. We're going to be talking about moonlighting, whether it's a threat or an opportunity. And I have a tendency to start with the why. So, my question to all panelists is, why do you think we are even discussing this topic? Moonlighting is a threat or an opportunity? Why are we on this panel today? Why are we discussing? What's your perspective? I'll start with Srinath, and then move on from there. So, Srinath, what do you think?
Thank you, Harini, and thanks to HRA for us, wonderful discussion event. I think coming to straight away jumping to the topic, why are we even discussing this? With the advent of post-COVID and the advent of work from home scenarios playing out across the globe, the potential for employees to expand their discretionary efforts and also sharpen their skills and also convert those skills and time available to be able to do more and also meet their demands of day-to-day necessities. I think this has beautifully coagulated to be able to create a platform and a need from an employee's perspective to do all these things and today still be doing what is also needed, right? So what we called unlocking the discretionary energy earlier has now become traditionally possible with all the technology platforms availability and also the scenarios of policies playing out in terms of work from home. Now the control has shifted, as I would always say, from the employer anchoring most of these issues to the employee making those pertinent decisions to be able to guide themselves to lead a life which is more well-rounded, which is more sharpened, which is more driven by passions and alignment. However, there are considerations which are sitting on the fringe in terms of the governance aspects and others that we will explore as we discuss. I think pertinently more coming from the topic per se, why now is a mature time for both the employer and the employees and the uncertainties playing out in the larger scale across the environments. This has become very important now.
What I hear you say, Srinath, is that the paradigm or the definition of work has changed. So it's a given, it has changed, and therefore it
Yes.
has to be there. But there are other things around the environment which needs to gear up, and that is why we are actually in this situation, wondering whether it's a threat or an opportunity. Yeah, but nothing. You can't deny the fact that the whole definition of work has changed. Right. So
Yes.
yeah. So great starting point. You're a fantastic opening batsman. And then now over to Shika. Would love to hear from you. What's your thought on why are we even discussing this today? Is it an opportunity or a threat?
I thought you said, did you say Srinath or did you say Shikha? We couldn't hear
Shika,
you.
Shika, Shika. Yes,
Oh,
you.
okay. I thought I'll just be very sure. So I like the fact that he's got the ball rolling in the right direction for all of us. It's the right time. We've started to realize that it's not as simple as we thought it would be. As an employer, simply prohibit and the job is done. The talk is even more important because we realize it's a multifaceted process and it's only triggering one thing after the other. There are dilemmas around how to make it more ethical and controlled and systematic for organizations and for employees. But having said that, we do know that this is not something that we could have fixed in one go, or neither are we fully prepared to handle the consequences of what lies ahead. uh, because it's not just momentary change that's happening. It's a churn that all of us are kind of moving with day in and day out, and we realize it's harder than we thought it would be. Simple things like remote working is also taking time, Arini, and I'm sure my fellow panel speakers would also agree that it started off with the whole pandemic thing, making things accessible, convenient, easy for us. We wanted access, and we got all of it. But the fact that gig economy is here to stay, we see more employees demanding it now, making it an absolute necessity for every corporate to actually give it a very serious thought, not as a task to be done and just make a prohibition rule around it, but to actually understand the nuances that it involves and do the groundwork and create systems, mechanisms that can help us not just momentarily deal with it, but also create systems to sustain the whole process in the coming future and make it a win-win framework for both employer and for the employee. I think that's why it's becoming very, very important. I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, I echo your thoughts as well. Is that uh, it has been there, and it's not something that is. It's like it's not something that has got switched on overnight. And we're all going through a churn. So as you go through it, as we go through that journey, we have to learn to accept what's there. We have to learn to accept what's not there. We have to try and build environment around it to make it happen a win-win. So the whole thing about win-win is something which is a big takeaway from what I hear you say, Shikha, because it's not just discussing whether it's an opportunity or a threat, but definitely at the end of this discussion, we all want to look at it as how do we make it a win-win, and that's the direction we should look forward to. So thanks for Srinath to give us a direction, and thanks Shikha to even tell us what are we going to try and achieve at the end of this 45-minute conversation. Now over to you, Sudipto. So I'm hearing some great positive things about moonlighting. It's been there. We need to figure out how to take it along with us in our journeys. What do you have to say from your experience in your industry sectors? You're on mute.
Harini, I think you brought in an analogy from the cricket, right? That opening batsman, batted very
I'm
well.
just being with the IPL season.
So
Yeah.
let me just take it forward from there. Then I saw that even middle order, batter, Shikha also scored quite well. So if both opening batter and the middle order batter, if they have scored so well, nothing is left for the tail ender to in fact talk about because the match is on, right? Nevertheless,
We look
since
forward to
you
your last over sixes. So
since you still ask the tail ender to go onto the crease and bat, so let me just share my perspective. I think it has to do with certain, your question was that why are you talking about it, right? I think there are certain social context and environmental context. I think that has come in the recent times. So if I, while they are talking, I was thinking about that if we really look at that. Probably earlier stage, employees were very loyal to one company. And whatever it's required to probably prove themselves in an organization, be loyal, go by the rules, go by the norm. That was their way of thinking, right? If we go to a generation before us, they wanted to start and end in the same organization. Slowly that is changing. Suddenly that slowness has become quite rapid, with the Gen Y to Gen Z coming in, their whole thought process, instant gratification, high aspiration, I want to do what I like. uh, that kind of created a kind of a scenario where people are saying we really don't bother about what employers think, I need to do for myself. So people are really acquiring more and more skills. They are thinking about whatever the skills they feel they need to acquire and they enjoy by applying those skills. So it's more about me, my aspiration, my will, my liking, rather than what probably others think. I think that's a very positive scenario, because if everybody thinks that way, you just need to somehow facilitate and drive it in a manner so that the whole synergy is in the right direction. But everybody needs to think that what they are doing, right? So I think that's a positive scenario. Then came COVID. When COVID came, then another social shift that happened in people's mind. People suddenly realized that there is only one life, and in this life, I need to really get the best out of that life for myself. That kind of reinforced that thought, not only with the Gen Z but even with others. And that's why we'll see that post COVID, the propensity to spend on luxury goods, holidays, those had significantly increased because people know that they don't know how long they are going to live, and that's only one life. So that thought process significantly changed. Nowadays, we really don't even think much and protest that, oh my God, airlines fare has increased by 50% or more than that, right? We are taking it's fine. We'll still travel in spite of increasing cost. You will see the economy is growing, the spend is growing, industries are growing. Particularly airlines industry in India has really seen boom post COVID as well, right? So these are certain permanent societal changes that is happening. So I think that's where suddenly we see that because of this psychological change, this societal change, aspirational change, uh, people are more vocal about saying that, okay, so what? If I have acquired another skill, I will go ahead and do that job. I really don't care much. And if that number is really becoming huge, then the conflict starts coming, because earlier whatever employer used to say, this is my contract, this is what you will do, this is the training I'm going to give you, this is the position I'm going to put you, this is the department I'm going to put you, and employees used to accept it. Okay, now I have to do it for that. Now that scenario has changed. So therefore we are into the transition where there is certain conflict is happening, certain friction is happening. But as both Srinath and Shikha, they have mentioned, I think from whatever they have spoken, it seems to me that moonlighting is going to be the future. So, the kind of rapid, technological advancement happening, the kind of job that is coming up, that is possible for someone to do multitasking, right? So that way I think it's future. But the question is that how long are you going to sustain this friction, a period, and then how are you going to stabilize, and when are you going to stabilize? And these are the two questions I think that is there in our mind. So as I'm sure as we go forward, I think we'll explore more on those aspects.
Yeah, there's an interesting aspect you started about talking of loyalty to an organization. And as I heard you speak, I was beginning to wonder, just like the definition of work has changed in the newer generations, has the definition of loyalty also changed? Right. So earlier, loyalty meant was staying committed to work only for one employer and not doing anything else, not even quitting a job for a change. But now probably loyalty has a different meaning. I was just wondering because I have children who are in their early 20s. To me, I would probably go back and ask them, what's your definition of loyalty? Because I think for them loyalty would mean, as long as I'm not causing any intentional harm to my employer, I'm still being loyal. So how does it matter if I do anything else where I exercise my skills when my time is not something which is dedicated to my employer? So that could be the definition of loyalty. And probably that is why more and more instances of wanting to moonlight is happening. So now back to you, Srinath.
So, but just because you talked about that, Harini, I'd just like to share that.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
not just from the employees side, right? Because this concept of loyalty is also changed from the employer side long time ago, maybe a couple of decades ago. At one point of time, maybe 3-4 decades ago, we used to hear that, okay, we offer a permanent employment. That has got changed. Now companies are saying, we offer you employability, not employment. Right. So that means employers are also saying that the definition has changed. I will skill you, I'll give you the opportunity, employability, I'll help you to build, but I cannot offer you a permanent employment. So if that happens, obviously that the loyalty aspects, people are getting, geared up for employability rather than employment.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just to support that, Harini, we have 10 million people who've lost their jobs during the pandemic, right? So
Hmm,
there's a very high perceived job insecurity that did its rounds. And
hmm,
people started to feel highly uncomfortable with the whole idea of
hmm,
not having that kind of a, caretaker around as an employer.
hmm,
That
hmm,
was
hmm,
the, let's say that was the image of an employer almost decades back.
hmm,
Uh, if you look at the transition that happened even before the pandemic, we did see a lot of our employees not feeling comfortable, looked after, or feeling valued, and they were leaving jobs, and attrition had already increased. Okay, after that, the job insecurity has only, multiplied the effect on the employees' mindset, and the increased cost of living, the inflation. It just won't let you be. Okay, so as of today, I think this is a pressing matter for us to look into, that the whole concept of loyalty is evolving for sure. The way I see it, people never thought of, I want to be loyal with my employer. They always thought, I want to bring in the best and I'm going to be taken care of because I will have stability. This is the employee employer contract in very simple terms to my mind, and that has gotten shaken to the core. So that's something I really
hmm,
wanted to bring
hmm,
up.
hmm.
I think
And
just
also,
to
I mean,
add a couple
Shikha,
of
I think
lines there. The loyalty part is very interesting, topic and triggering a lot of thoughts. Great, thanks, for that. But what has happened is the movement of the anchor from employer employee loyalty to the employee taking full control of the loyalty factor to the governing of self interest, right? If you look at every other survey from on the millennials and the Gen Zs, it talks about interest, self interest, governing that, and flexibility to be able to achieve that in terms of goals of life as part of work and not work driving the whole thing, right? So that delinking has happened, and beautifully it has its own pros and cons, but the loyalty factor now is more guarding the interests of self to be able to journey life and reward self in terms of what you could accomplish over your journey and how you navigate those. And work has become one part of that whole now. Earlier, yes, my dad served 33 years in one organization. We don't see that. And even for businesses, the uncertainty is so high that the shift has taken place, that they no longer have careers where a person could join in as an MT and retire from there. You no longer have those,
Hmm.
except for probably the government institutions, right? So therefore it is also imperative that how do we coach our people, how do we engage our people to be able to say, what, you can do what you want, but still align yourself to a common purpose of the organization as long as you're there, and derive the best for each other, right? So I think loyalty now is not the years of service, it is how many moments that you are able to align yourself to the organization and do the
Yeah,
best for both.
yeah. So
you know,
definitely,
I love always saying that, I strongly believe that, whatever you do in an organization is a reflection of the society. And I think there is a societal change on that aspect also has been happening for years. People are becoming, as and as we see more urbanization, more industrialization, more, people earning better and better. Obviously, people are becoming more selfish as well, and which you can also see that same loyalty which probably you could see in a family, in a among friend circle, in the society that was there. That's not there anymore. I mean, joint families are broken into nuclear families, right? Everybody wants to be independent, and they would like to do good for them. So in a way, I think what we call in a negative term selfish, but if you look at the positive side of that, everybody is trying to be more independent and then trying to do better and better for themselves, right? So that societal aspect, what was there probably 50 years, 100 years ago, that has completely undergone a sea change, and the reflection of the same is happening in the organization as well.
I think
so
that
so
is where
talking
the
of,
moonlighting aspect also gets aligned, because
yeah, yeah,
this is
yeah,
an avenue where somebody can fulfill their desires, right? This
absolutely.
is an avenue where they can exploit it, they could
Yes.
Because
leverage it
So
and use it
this
beautifully.
segues. Srinath, this segues into the question which I was about to ask you, and then
Sure.
we digressed a bit. So I actually am seeing now again, because since Sudipto brought in a societal angle to it, I have this what came first, chicken or egg kind of a question to you. Uh, is it that more and more remote work started happening during COVID and post COVID, and that led to moonlighting? Or is it that moonlighting is leading people to say that, okay, let me work remotely so that I can moonlight? Which came first? Which do you think came first? It's as complicated as a chicken or egg. So yeah, let's hear it from you.
So I
Yeah,
think, Harini,
I think, yeah,
neither.
go ahead.
I
Go ahead,
think neither.
Sudipto, go ahead.
Okay,
Okay,
so
Sudipto says neither. Srinath, I want to
yes.
hear from you.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it was all instead of answering the timing of it, I would say the need for it has only increased, right? Has only increased because of various aspects of society, various burdens, uncertainties that played out across the globe. I think this gave an avenue as well, and stable organizations, stable processes had those bandwidths available with skills where they could sharpen them, where they could put it to use and still get what they want, and that opened up a lot of avenues. And companies also did not shy away from engaging people who were already engaged, right?
Hmm,
At the end
hmm,
of the day, it
hmm,
was matter of
hmm.
skills that mattered to sustain businesses in COVID periods. Probably it was the pressures of getting the business going in tough times, but then that evolved over a period with more and more component of gig playing out in each of the roles. The more well defined roles and job content became, it was easier for it to be gigged, right? And anything that did not have a physical component like an assembly line, like a factory kind of a setup, could still be performed in multiple entities. Now the businesses had to go back to the drawing boards and figure out how the governing mechanism had to be drawn about. But I would say gig was always there. Doctors
Hmm.
used to go to homes and after their clinic times visit individual consumers who would want their services. It was always there, but
Yeah.
then the component of it has increased manyfold, and the technology has caught up very very beautifully to be able to enable that. Now you have thousands of websites having gig workers playing putting out their skills in the open, and anybody who is willing to engage them will be benefited at the end of the day.
That's interesting, because if you look at moonlighting as a concept, it has been there. Because I remember, my mother was a teacher all her life, and
Yeah.
she was a very senior teacher in a reputed school. And there would be a lot of students to whom she would teach after school hours. And there was this dilemma question which I asked her, that is this another second employment? That was when I was reading about employment and dual employment and all that. And her answer was, I'm doing this to help my school deliver better results. So I'm actually supporting my school after school hours. So it's really not something which is against the school, it is benefiting the school. And then I felt, oh, that is where she has defined that she is within the line of ethics when it comes to moonlighting, because she was using her specialized skill of being able to teach better. She was putting in her personal time, but actually her objective was the school. So she still remained within her line of ethics. So before we jump into ethics per se, as I heard Srinath talking, another question just cropped up in my mind, and I think this is apt for Shikha to answer, and I just want to use this opportunity. So because there are opportunities, people end up moonlighting, they end up actually working longer hours, even though it may be something that they're very passionate about. Because most of the time moonlighting is when I want to exercise some of the skills that I have built over passion, and I'm not doing what someone is asking me to do and I'm doing it, etc. People end up working longer hours. I'm saying under the definition of work. They work, they earn
Yeah.
money, so that puts pressure on them. So from your perspective, is moonlighting leading people to burnout much faster than if they were not moonlighting? What do you think as a happiness coach?
It's a very valid question, Harini. In fact, in today's time and age, the amount of stress we are taking already is at the highest level possible. Okay, because of the influx of technology, because of too much information pouring in, extreme exposure to what's happening around us, competition with everything and everyone, possible. There is already a high amount of stress and very low capability quotient uh, in each one of us as individuals. Okay, so with very low faculties, low focus levels, very high stress, I think moonlighting will only increase it. It'll accelerate the whole process of exhaustion and burnout. If it's not guided and checked properly, it can be harmful for sure. It has a very high potential. But having said that, what I also see on the other side, Harini, is there are a lot of people pursue their personal passions and interest areas, in these side gigs. So I didn't know there are different types of moonlighting. So there's something called blue moonlighting. I don't know how many of us have heard of it, but it's when the moonlighting has gone wrong. Okay, when somebody is not able to moonlight correctly or effectively, either for themselves or for the employer. So it just backfires on the employee, on his mental health, on his overall personality, productivity gets affected, so on and so forth. Now, this is the kind of moonlighting that we don't want to encourage. And we definitely want to put as many checks as possible around it. But there are, other types of moonlighting where people are just doing some side gigs for a couple of hours in their free time, which has got nothing to do with my line of business, which is a very healthy one, even if it's a full-time moonlight there. So I get free at 3 o'clock, and after that, I get my, 4, 5, 5, 6 hours to do something completely different, something that my heart's, was my deepest desire or passion for that matter. So I do see a lot of people pursuing that, and it helps them as a coping mechanism. It rejuvenates them and allows them to come back with double productivity, really, when they're at the workplace. So it can have a beautiful, effect on the individuals if we are guiding and spreading that kind of awareness amongst employees and employers both. And at the same time, as an employer, am I checking in with my employees? When I start to do something like moonlighting, or I encourage these discussions within my organization, that will not be sufficient. What's also important is to see how it's going for the other person when they're attempting a side gig or a second employment. So I think the process is a long-term process for us. First is to be mentally prepared and aligned with the higher purpose, creating that win-win framework. The second is where, these check-ins become very, very critical, over and above creating policies, structures, and guidelines, or even rewriting employment contracts if required. So essentially, I feel, knowing these aspects will become very critical. What's the interest of your employee? What is their passion? What is their reason why they want to do it? Is it just for some extra income, or is there something else that's driving them? So once you know that, and you start to create these, frameworks around it, and do your connect, I think magic can get created too. So it can
Wow,
have both the
this is
effects, largely
interesting.
speaking.
Looking at
Yeah.
types of moonlighting and encouraging people to take up the right kind of moonlighting could be something that an employer could do. So actually, that brings me to the very next question. I'm still not touching the legal and ethical aspect of it yet, but I think what Shika pointed out made me think another direction. I want to take this question to Sudipto. When employers talk about moonlighting to their employees, in the case that they want to encourage them to do it, uh, so that's one way to normalize moonlighting. That's what I heard Shikha say, that it's okay to moonlight, and as long as you are within this framework. So what should employers do to normalize moonlighting? Because what I still hear in organizations that I come across in my consulting space is that moonlighting does happen, but it's all in the closet. No one talks about it, but everybody knows that it's a well-known secret that moonlighting does happen, but people do not come forth and talk about it because it is still considered illegal, unethical. There is a taboo around it. But if we were to normalize moonlighting, what could employers do differently to encourage their employees, talk about benefits of moonlighting? Do you think, what's your view? So I'm not saying we should do it. You could have a contradictory view to it also, not a problem. But what's your view? Should employers encourage moonlighting, clarifying what's the right kind of moonlighting they should do? What do you think, Sudipta?
Yeah, I think uh, at the backdrop, employers are already encouraging that. And that's the reason this concept of moonlighting, the debate has come into the surface. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And I tell you why.
Hmm.
At the core of this moonlighting, what I say that, is basically to do with aspiration and competition. So if you look at aspiration from individual side, which I already talked about, the societal change, Gen Z, their aspiration, they want to do whatever. That is one part. On the other hand, from the employer side, there is an aspiration to do more, better, compete. Okay. And that's the reason where employers are also looking at that, I really don't want permanent employment by employees who are just being there in so-called loyal way, but not really delivering. I want result. So they are also saying that at the end of the day, what I want is output and result. And the moment you talk about output and results, employers are saying it really doesn't matter whether you are on the roll or not. You know, even if you're a contract person, even if you're a consultant, even an advisor, and most importantly, they have started encouraging gig. Okay, you come and 3 hours, 2 hours, you come, do not come, it doesn't matter. As long as you deliver, it's fine with me. So that is the main crux of the moonlighting. So I think employers already started normalizing it because of that pressure, because of the competition, because of that pressure for output. And that's why moonlighting has come onto the surface. Now the question is, that how do I go about it, right? So maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I see that at the end of the day, if the result is the core, along with the aspirations and competition, result is the derivative or the output for that, and that's where moonlighting is happening, then we need to have a mechanism that how do we measure result. And there is a concept I'm sure all of you are aware of called ROWE, result only work environment. If result only work environment is fully implemented, it's in right spirit, which is very, very difficult to do, right? Then I think all this problem will be resolved completely. And so-called traditional debate about what time to what time employees should be there, coming to office, not office, what time they should punch, if they're late, this is what it is happening. They're only doing it because organizations are not really focusing on ROWE. They are not able to measure the output properly. And that's why they're saying, okay, you have to come and spend certain time in office. Then I think I'll feel very comfortable that, okay, you have worked, right? But in today's context, an employee can spend 8 hours being in office, but looking at the phone and surfing net or YouTube or whatever, right? So that's why I think in today's context, it has become even more important than how to be more objective towards ROW and measure result. If that happens, I think problem will be resolved.
Okay. Yeah, that's again an interesting perspective. It made me wonder, what if I have an employee who is working full time for me, spends 8, 9 hours in the office, and delivers some output, and spends couple of hours moonlighting after work hours, and ends up delivering much better output or an outcome. Does that affect me? Should I be worried about? So these are some thoughts which would run in any employer's mind. So back to you, Srinath. What do you think? Should it really bother an employer as to is the employer deriving the employee's fullest potential uh, within those work hours, or is it okay as long as outcomes are delivered, and if the person is moonlighting I shouldn't bother? So how should an employer look at this whole thing from
I
the
think
interest of the
yeah,
business, from the interest of the business?
definitely a resource employed as part of a contract needs to get their whole self to work, right?
Hmm.
That whole self, the moment it gets divided, the focus also gets shifted. Whether it is aiding to a particular skill, will that skill in the long term yield results is a different matter altogether. But on a day to day basis, here and now, is the employee able to deliver results fully focused with complete energy and discipline that is required to be able to impact positively? Now, businesses have and need to guardrail this aspect of getting the employee engaged fully. Uh, Definitely, there are physical boundaries, there are mental challenges in terms of engaging continuously for more than 8, 9 hours, and be able to do and deliver on what is expected. So therefore, the moment it's divided, any employer will feel the pinch. Now, how much of it would you encourage? In what form and factor? And how do you guard your patents, your innovation, so that the same skill is not deployed in more likely so in a competitive space, right? So a moonlighting person might just go to your competition and say, you know what, I have done this here, I can, I have the skill, I can help you do this too. So how do you guardrail those aspects is a challenge, is a governing challenge that companies have to evolve. And the post-COVID scenario, if you look at employment contracts, the non-confidentiality, the clauses that govern codes of conduct, the clauses that govern work from home, and what you can, work on, have gone much more stringent than it was before. Simply because businesses have to govern their patents, have to govern their resources that are paid for.
The screen is frozen, is it?
I think
Yeah,
we
I
lost
think we lost the connection.
Srinath. So by the time he comes back, the same question I would want to take it back to Shikha. Should an
Yeah.
employer really bother about an employee moonlighting, or what should they do differently so
I,
that
I want to
in the
ask a
interest of the
question
business?
as a yeah, I want to ask a question as a response to that, Harini, if that's okay. Why bother about what employees do in their free time? This is their
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Essentially, I think the problem lies where it becomes unethical, where there's a
Mm,
conflict of interest.
mm, mm,
Beyond that, there's nothing that bothers any of the employers and shouldn't, ideally.
mm,
So
mm,
essentially, the that is one area that we will delve into. I'm assuming you have a thought around that. So we
mm,
look at it a little later, but I want to throw some stats across and share the
mm,
fact that there are already 8.7 million Americans doing the second job. Okay, and
mm,
it's legal in that country. We do know that in Spain, they put some restrictions around the number of hours somebody can engage in their second jobs. Google has already put in a policy in place where they're, giving something like a 20% time policy to their employees, saying, whatever you want to do for the personal passions, please go ahead and do it. But that's how much time you should be spending on it. So the fact that
mm,
I just recently pointed out that there has to be some guideline around making it like a healthy practice,
yeah.
where that win-win can be achieved. So these are some numbers, experiences that show us the way forward for us as our workspace canvas is evolving. I've done a lot of culture work. I've done a lot of OD work over my 22 years, Hadni, and this is one thing I've seen organizations struggling with the most. Okay, this is it's transformation for sure. There has to be a complete overhaul of mindset too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, of how we are looking at the employer-employee relationship, how we are looking at what's the way forward and what is the yield we want to achieve. Productivity is, a part or a process that leads to it. But essentially, it's the outcome that you're looking at, right? So somebody pointed out that we are focused. So Dipto mentioned that this is where we want to orient ourselves. We want to fix our goal first and then see, okay, if you've been able to achieve it, it's fine. There's no problem with it. But at the end of the day, I think as a mindset, a lot of us are very used to this traditional employment thing. Okay. And this is where the cultures are stuck. Okay. Or the
Mm,
leadership gets stuck,
mm,
with the traditional mindset that this is
mm,
how it's supposed to be. This is what he's meant to do. But look at how many things and how many people are doing what they're meant to do or how they're supposed to be. Going back to what Sudipta highlighted, look at the societal changes. I could have never imagined, Harini, that in 10 minutes I could get anything under the sun at my place. Okay. Initially, it was just the household groceries. Okay. Blinkit has completely spoiled us with these choices, convenience, ease of access, all of it. And there was a point where I was asking myself this question out of curiosity: do I really need this in 10 minutes? Okay. There's a dark side to that too, of what happens to the people who are delivering it in 10 minutes. Imagine. But the fact is that we are becoming more and more victimized to the marketing gimmicks. We are becoming slaves to this, quick service kind of a phenomena. And we think it's a birthright to do it. Okay. And there are my friends sitting in US who are like, you know what, you're blessed that you have house help. You know what, you're blessed that you can get things at home on ordering it online, whether it's food or whether it's any item you want to order. I said, come to think of it, in India, we're all as consumers evolving at a pace that you can't even imagine. And we're enslaved in this entire thought process as well. That this is my right, this is supposed to be this way. Um, if my own apartment's grocery shop does not deliver in 10 minutes, I literally shout at him saying, I would have rather, ordered this on Blinkit instead of asking you for it. Think of the mindset that's getting developed. And the same thing gets replicated when I'm in a job or when I'm trying to deal with something, and I know it can happen in a very little, or a very less time. And I have choices. I can shift gears. I can quickly say, okay, I'm not going to do this. I will order from Zomato instead. I'm not going to order from my grocery shop. I'm going to order on Blinkit instead. Now, this pattern, this human behavior is gotten ingrained in me. So as an employee, I have it. As an employer, I have it. Okay. The employer thinks that this is my right. This is how it's supposed to be. And the employee better deliver. Okay. The traditional mindset. But the employee feels, on the other hand, it's I have choices. Instagram is pouring so much information that I can earn extra money. Why not? Okay. So this is the future where that there are set examples around countries doing it legally, making it productive for both the employee and the employer. We also see the other side of how at a society level we are getting impacted, and that is getting replicated through our human behavior patterns and mindsets also. So yeah, it has its limitations. We all know that it needs to be managed and maneuvered in a proper way. But having said that, what Sudipto mentioned, it's getting already nuanced and structured, and people are normalizing the concept of
Yeah.
moonlighting for an obvious reason, because that
Yeah.
there's no other way out.
So
So
again, an
one
interesting thought.
thing, yeah, Harni, sorry.
Yeah, go
One
on, go
thing
on,
that
go on.
worked for us as an organization was to be able to. We were in a niche industry, evolving industry, not enough skills available, that were ready to be able to contribute and develop the organization in terms of innovation. So what we did, we really made it transparent for people to come up and say, what, if you could do this, apart from, what you do for us here, we will be able to readily help you. In that fashion, we were able to at least 2 to 3 new businesses were hosted as an allied partner to the primary business of manufacturing EVs, to be able to get a service component, to be able to get a alliance with innovating institutes who were contributing to research on latest in battery management, latest in how to manage thermal runaways of electric vehicles. And in that fashion, we were able to use the gig aspect to be able to drive passion higher and also create allied businesses for them. I saw an interesting comment in the chat box saying employers allowing moonlighting, also driving new businesses. Yes, you could do it as long as
Absolutely.
it is within the boundaries of ethical conduct and highly transparent, and a clear handshake is evident. If there is no clear handshake, then there is always that lurking around the corner feeling. He's saying, am I doing something right? And that drops engagement, that creates mistrust, that breaks the bonds that are there, and it has its own adverse impact. Neither is it productive here, nor there is stability, nor there is a career that is growing.
Very, very interesting thoughts. In fact, so Shikha brought in another completely different thought about, she brought in this aspect of Blinkit and all that. And I was just wondering, with all these, so of course, humans have become a slave to convenience, right? So definitely, that is why all these models are flourishing and all of us are contributing to it. So it's fantastic. But as we fall slave to these models, these are also creating a lot of job opportunities. It's possible that some people are moonlighting doing this kind of job as well, right? So what I was just wondering is that if all of that is happening and job opportunities are getting created and that is encouraging people to moonlight, do things that they are very passionate about. For example, somebody might be very passionate about riding, and this could be a way to convert their passion to an additional income, and therefore moonlighting. Just throwing a thought. So, what is it that is driving people to moonlighting? Is it that they want to earn an additional income, or is there something else? Of course, we know that most moonlighting, I mean, it all started with people wanting to do what they're passionate about, and it's fantastic if it gets them more money. But what is a primary driver for people to moonlight? It's coming
You-
back to a fundamental question.
Yeah. No, I think we're going back and back in the same thing, but I think I would just like to share a couple of thoughts based on the conversation going on here.
Mm,
You talked
mm,
about your mother being a school
mm,
teacher, also doing
mm,
certain things, and
mm,
then Shikha really brought in that interesting aspect that in terms of their passion, their hobby, right? Now let us understand there is a difference, right? In that context, what Harini said, moonlighting was there, has been there, it will be there, but only you are talking much about that, and which I said that from the employer side also you are encouraging, because gig economy you are encouraging because we really want result and stuff like that. But why moonlighting is, whether it is good or bad, if I just come back to that straight point, and that's what probably started the debate, that if I am doing moonlighting because of the need, okay, because of and it is stressing me out. Probably if I talk about my earlier generation where somebody is doing a job which is not really enough earning to support the family, I have to go and do other jobs, etc., then it is stressful. The moment it is stressful, then whole aspects of ethical aspects coming in, right? So I'm not even going to integrate and say ethical, that okay, am I really doing justice to my either of the jobs, right? So that's where moonlighting becomes a problem. And that's why I think companies are coming and saying, no, no, it is affecting the productivity, it is affecting output, and so on and so forth, right? And, because they are still not able to measure the output properly, right? So that's one aspect. But the moment someone is doing, saying that, okay, it is my passion, and, because of that passion, it is giving more energy, right? So then it is like a creating a work-life balance. It can turn around and create a positive energy and support the primary job as well, right? In that case, moonlighting would be perfectly fine. And I think that's the point Shikha was talking about, that how passionately, how as your hobby you are trying to do that thing, right? And I think that's where I really like the Shikha said that we have to do a lot of mindset and typically do a mental well-being session for people, and aligning people in terms of that, okay, how we can converge this moonlighting for a win-win positive output for both employer as well as for the employee. Now there is one aspect of integrity. I think that's everybody knows that when there is a competing clause or there is a contractual obligation that is there from the then obviously if I go beyond that, then there is an issue of integrity. So I define in my way that integrity is something which is absolutely harming the organization, and that's where I need to draw my line. Whereas ethical is something which is not harming the organization, but I know not directly harming the organizations, not really coming under the competing clause or contractual obligation, but I still know that because of I'm doing something in a stressed manner, uh, I'm not really able to give the full of mine to the organization which I'm committed to first. Then that becomes the ethical aspects, right? And that ethics can be best understood by the employee. You cannot really define it through a contractual clause in that manner, right?
mm,
And
mm.
that's what I think, if we are
Yeah.
able to bifurcate these two, I think then we'll get an easy answer towards the solutions going
Yeah,
forward.
thanks for sharing that. And for me, the biggest takeaway in all of this is as long as the trigger to moonlight is something which is coming out of a passion to do something, it's fine because it also takes care of the burnout. It
Well-being.
also
Yeah.
ensures, yeah, it's a win-win, right? So all of that is there. If the trigger is a passion, and I also that helps me to rejuvenate and come back and be better productive at work. But if the trigger is purely more money, if the trigger is just financial, then it could also impact well-being, because I will never know when to stop. And more money, when it comes to money, it's always dil mange more, and I'll keep doing. And also, when the trigger is only money and everything else is blinded, it is possible that I might cross the ethical line. So I think it's conscious. It's important to be conscious about what is the trigger to moonlight. Why do I want to moonlight? Now that would be a very useful tip for individuals who intend to moonlight. And I actually wanted to wrap up our conversation. Use the next 5 minutes to share what each of us thinks about what can people do to to talk about their intent to moonlight. What is right, what's ethical, how can they open up, how can they share, because there are a lot of people who are doing it the right way, but they're still hesitating to share because they don't know if it will backfire on them. They don't know if the employer might see it as crossing the line of ethics or a conflict of interest, etc. So let me start with you, Srinath. What do you think an individual, a young kid who's just entered the workforce, who's still not well aware of labor laws and all of that, and might still be confused, what can he or she say when they want to talk about or share or be open about their moonlighting? What should they do and feel safe?
Yeah, what we have actually done towards this is we, at the start of their journey with the organization, during the induction sessions, we clearly mention about the Factories Act, the Shops and Establishment Act, and how the statutory compliances do not encourage moonlighting. However, as long as there is transparency, there is handshake, and it is not competing within the organization and helping competition, which is very clear, lines are drawn. There are boundaries, and we say, do not hesitate to come back and share what you want to do with us, so that there is always a clear communication established, line of sight is available, and we can coach you in a better manner rather than, doing the hide and seek. Also, having said that, trust but verify is a very clear policy direction that we have taken, and we also ensure that the background checks, that the technology is put to use to ensure that there is no boundaries of integrity and ethics that are crossed at any point of time. These are, always in parallel. They do exist, and we make the employees aware of these, that these are existent, and this is how it works here, and this is the boundaries that you have to honor, and these are the conversations that you can have and safely exist and not be judged by a bias towards anything, as long as, we work within the ambits that are defined. It's a very gray. There is no black and white here, but what has helped us is to put all the cards down beforehand and
Absolutely.
ensure that the conversations continue as long as they exist within the organization. So at every point, they have a touch point to come back and say, you know what, I have this in my mind. We had a classic example where somebody wanted to go and teach in a educational institute and teach them how electric vehicles work. Now, when they teach the work, obviously they're borrowing from the work that they're currently doing, right? So how much of it is palatable, how much of it is organizations can say, yes, you can do this, or no, you can do it. It's a kind of gray. You need to have a conversation, you need to evolve, you need to put certain, trust factor that is working. Trust plays a major, you can write reams of policies, reams of
Absolutely.
words, and all
Absolutely.
that would not matter as long as that there is no trust. So I think
Absolutely.
these
Trust is
things
at
have,
the core. Yeah.
yeah. So
Undoubtedly, trust is at the core. And I really love the idea of creating an awareness that this is what legally is permissible or not permissible,
yes.
but allowing things to evolve and become relevant in today's times, and putting certain boundaries to protect the interest of the organization. And that deal of transparency, I think, goes a long way in
Yes.
helping people open up. So this is a great point, Srinath, from what an organization can do. But back to you, Shikha. If an individual wants to talk about a moonlighting gig that he or she is doing, what should he or she take care or be aware of while opening up to their own employers or among their peers? Should they feel safe? What should they do to feel safe?
Ideally, that the right way of moving forward is to feel safe, be open about it, and bring it up to their HR professionals. But like Srinath pointed out, it's up to the organization's culture really to make that kind of psychological safety happen at the employee's end. And if they feel comfortable, they get that feeling of trust, they will open up and there will be no problem henceforth. But having said that, this cultural aspect is something that varies drastically from one organization to the other. And I'm sure, Harni, you are completely aware of how tricky this gets, with these evolving times and transformational phases that we're going through. So it's important that as an employer, I do my due diligence of signing a NDA or ensuring that my policies call out for disclosure and complete approval as they move forward. Because, there is a shade of gray, like Srinath said. A lot of us don't even know what a conflict of interest means, So over my training sessions, when I have delivered on ethics and values and, cultural elements within organizations, I would always come back with the thought that there are so many questions left unanswered in the minds of the employees, despite the fact that these are values, ethics, vision, mission that we put posters of across an organization. Very few employees actually are aware of it, or are aligned to the whole thought process, or are able to work in alignment with those thoughts. Having said that, it's the same gray area when it comes to conflict of interest. And I think I pointed that out earlier. In all these 20 plus years where I've handled disciplinary issues, grievances within organization, not even one employee would come to me, Harini, saying that there is a conflict of interest area, ma'am, that I want to discuss with my HR. Okay. So the hard reality today is that employees, we can create policies that can be crystal clear about it. What's more important for us as an employer is also to educate and make sure that my employee understands it and is able to internalize and implement it as he or she moves forward, right? Which doesn't happen. It's the same situation with Porsche. When the implementation happened, people knew that structures, compliances were critical, but how many people were actually able to imbibe it and bring it into their culture? That was a different, ball game altogether. So easier said than done. Uh, a very simple analogy that I draw out of this multitasking, of moonlighting is a multitasking gardener. Okay, what does this multitasking gardener do? He can take care of a lot of these small gardens, right? And all the gardens can look beautiful, right? So what's important for us to understand is that you're the owner of your garden. It could be small or big. At the end of the day, what matters to me is that my garden should look beautiful, right? It should be well taken care of. If that outcome is not affected, I'm happy and good with this gardener going ahead and making multiple gardens look beautiful, right? So it's not as complicated as we make it in our head. Sometimes, as human beings, we are hardwired to complicate and we love to solve the complicated concept then in our head. It's just about this phenomena which is picking up. People want to pick up a side gig, whether the driver, because you pointed this out, if it's coming out of passion, it's healthy. But if it's coming out of a need, it may go in that gray area of, uh, crossing the ethical lines or crossing that boundary or making things worse for themselves at an individual level. Maybe not. There will be times when the person can still handle it and can handle two full jobs beautifully too. It depends on the individual's capabilities. So as an expert, what I feel is more important is to know how can you contribute in creating that kind of a coping mechanism or management systems within your organization. How can you support? If that's the question we ask, the set of answers we will get will be very different. Okay, what do I do to make this possible and a win-win for all of us involved? So I can't be picky and choosy around. If it's just a side gig for a couple of hours, it's okay. If it's driven out of passion, it's better. If it's not, then it's prohibited. That will also create a very fixed mindset for us. So what I wanted to bring out was that it's important for us to know how we can support. How do we reach out? How can we make it more transparent a mechanism, more open a culture where we can have discussions about it and make it more conducive for both the parties. So I think communication is the key at the end of the day, just like any other change we've battled and sailed through. And keeping these guardrails for future would be required so that things are more ethical, things don't go into the unproductive area for us. But let's not have any fixed mindsets around drivers or what's the purpose, how many hours. No, it just completely should depend on the role, the flexibility of the profile, the industry the person is working in, and the disclosures that are essential for us as the employers. If these facets are taken care of, I think the way forward is simpler than we can imagine. So it's not,
All right.
it may appear to be kettle of fish, which is
All right.
messy and not as expected,
Yeah.
but it can be simplified and made fairly easy, and we can all have beautiful gardens at the end of the day. So
Agreed.
yeah.
I think yeah, this is it's a good high to end this conversation with, and we would love to talk more and more. But I saw Faisal turning on his camera, which means that it's time for me to stop. And over to you, Faisal.
Thank you, Harini. Your expert facilitation brought vibrancy and depth to the discussion. Thank you for steering it so effectively. Sincere appreciation to Srinath, Shikha, and Sudipto for their enlightening perspective and meaningful contributions. Your time and effort made this discussion truly impactful, and we look forward to many more engaging and insightful conversations. For those eager to visit today's insights, the session recording is available on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. A special thanks to our event partners, Dacia, NASCOM COE, Talgro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local Ahmedabad, and India for their invaluable support in making this event a success. To learn more about these associations, please refer to the links provided in the chat. We look forward to welcoming you to our next session on the topic the 4-day work week experiment, global lessons learned on April 10th, 2020.